Okay, so we will, like I mentioned to various classes, okay, we're going to make your final approach, just like if you were flying in a plane when you're about ready to reach your destination. Um, it will be where the pilot will hit a button, I'm sure, in the cockpit that says, okay, fasten your seat belts, and then the stewardess will walk around and say, okay, we're making our final approach to our destination. You need to sit down, put your tray up, and many various other requests. And that's what we're doing with you seniors. You just have a finish the handout, if you choose to, which I would suggest that you do. The vocabulary is on there. Take the vocabulary evaluation, and then complete the handout, or I mean the short answer papers for that. Then you four are done, okay? It's the rest of you that we still have a little bit of work to do that will include this. So just like with every other chapter, okay, you see that term up there. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you see what is on that tile, slide, or whatever? Okay, breathing, which means respiration, that's true. But there's a lot more to just breathing when we look at this system, because it will affect, it can be a cascade of effects, and ones that you just would not think of, but we can certainly make examples. So anything else? What might be involved when you talk about breathing? Okay, so it's a trick question that I always like to put on usually the sophomores' exams, and maybe this one as well. The inspiration or expansion of the lungs is due to the muscular action of what? Or I should say, the lungs filling with air is due to the muscular action of what? Or how do we breathe? What's the muscular action? Yeah, it's the diaphragm that does that. Your lungs are not muscles. Your lungs is epithelial tissue. Okay? So what structures might be involved with this? There's a lot of them. Okay, trachea, that is the tube that would go from the back of the pharynx, which is your throat, okay, and down into your bronchi. And then your bronchi split into bronchioles, and then bronchioles get even smaller into alveoli. Those are really tiny sacs that if they're really small, there must be a type of vessel that wraps around these alveoli. So what would the smallest vessel be? Capillaries, because when we talk about diffusion, okay, it's where materials move in and out of past a membrane. In this case, it's your capillaries. Okay, so when we talk about capillaries, carbohydrates and hormones, do they move through cells and the capillary bed very easily? And of course the answer is yes. It's a type of facilitated diffusion. So some of the aspects that you learned 1 and 2 years ago in biology, some of them we explore again. We just go a little further in depth. Okay, so getting back to your trachea, okay? What might be right in front of that has no respiratory function, but yet things end up in here where they shouldn't? It's another tube, the esophagus, which is right in front of your trachea, okay? So does anyone know how or why that's possible? There's a little flap that is back here, okay? It's actually probably located about right here, okay? Maybe right above your larynx or your voice box, okay? There's a glottis and there's an epiglottis. But which one might be further or higher, the epiglottis or the glottis? think of your skin. Got a 50-50 chance. Glottis is on top. Okay? So then, if that's the case, when we look at our skin, what is on the top? The dermis or the epidermis? The epidermis is on top. So your epiglottis sits higher than your glottis, okay? So what happens when you swallow, you have a uvula. Does anyone know what your uvula is? People like to call it, oh, it's that little punching bag on the back of your throat, okay? So that will flip up so things don't end up in your nasal cavity. And then your glottis, okay, is what will keep things, your glottis is what will keep things from going from your tracheal tube into your esophagus then. Okay, so those are just some different types of structures, and then respiration actually ties into pH values, okay? So can you two answer something? We talked about this. There's a whole bunch of functions, okay, with these guys right here, okay? So thiamine, once that gets too hot, as your body gets too warm, you can't metabolize things correctly, okay? And you might have muscle weakness. So these other vitamins here, okay, they work within such a narrow range of pH values, okay? When we say narrow ranges, it's one of those to where it's about 7.5 is normal, and if you have a pH value that may go up to maybe a little over 8, some of the vitamins might not work the way that they should, which could lead to muscle weakness. Maybe you can't metabolize glucose correctly or efficiently. Those things that happen, and that can be correlated to your respiratory system, because if you take in too much carbon dioxide, you can't get it out, your pH value is going to start to go up. So when we say up in number, that means it's becoming basic. If it's going down in number, then it's becoming acidic, okay? So we know that acids are important in our bodies as well, because as we look at our menu today, why would acids like hydrochloric acid be important for pepperoni pizza? And this is going all the way back to September. What mechanism in the human body is digestion that might involve acid? Not that enzyme. Pepsin, that has to be activated from that of pepsinogen, and the acid does that. Okay, so away we go. The respiratory system, okay? So if we could put a subscript in here, we would. So within the human body, if we don't take in enough oxygen, do our muscles work correctly? Because it says it's involved in this type of production. Okay? And yes, the body still does produce ATP, it's just not very efficient. Was that a pen or your knuckles? Was that? See, I thought it was you. Okay. Do that when we're nervous or having fun? Oh, we're having fun. That's when we crack our knuckles. Just a habit. Okay. See, now you're causing that cascade effect. Now everyone else wants to do that. And I suppose, I guess I'll follow suit. So, yeah. So, okay. Okay. See, that's about the time when someone needs to look in the window and everyone's doing this or something like that. Okay. from biology. Okay? Glucose is broke down to help produce this ATP. But what cycle does that need to get into where you need enough oxygen? It starts with a K. I think we talked about this yesterday. Yeah, the Krebs cycle. Was it this class? Okay, because accepted values of how much ATP you're going to produce might not be the same from one periodic to another. Yes, so if you don't have enough energy, you can still produce, or enough oxygen, you can still produce energy through glycolysis. You can, it's just not very efficient. Okay. Okay, so where would that put us? Okay, so next week, okay, we're going to move on to some of these organs, okay? And you can see there's an upper tract and a lower tract. Now, the reason we would say that is, anatomically speaking, you can't see the lower tract of your respiratory system, but you can see the upper tract. Does anyone want to take a guess why that would be? Because your upper tract would include your mouth, your nose, okay? That's exterior to the human body. Your lower tract then, your trachea, those other structures we mentioned, what might those be? They're internal, but what are they? Yeah, it is in the lower tract. Okay, you're starting to say it. Bronchi, there's bronchioles, the bronchial tree, the bronchus, and then the tiniest structure of all, alveoli, because those are really tiny structures. How many of you remember looking at bacteria on the microscope? There were two forms. You were looking at rod-shaped bacteria that were probably either E. coli or bacilli. Those were gram-negative. Then you looked at gram-positive bacteria. That was called cocci, C-O-C-C-I. Okay? And that was the shape. It was Micrococcus luteus. That's why it looked like grape-like clusters. So when you look at those alveoli, it looks like a whole set of clusters of grapes, just like what you would see on that slide of bacteria. Okay, so next week we'll start moving on to some of the upper and lower tracts of your respiratory system. We're winding down fairly quickly, so I would be led to believe that you four won't be doing the short answers for this. You just take the evaluation, which will be on May 9. Be the last thing that you do. Yeah. Some of you already took your last evaluation for zoology. Now you'll take your last evaluation here, which is just those vocab terms. All right, we'll catch up to you next time.